Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today we're doing something a little different. We're not just looking at a single philosophical text, but at the moment, an entire philosophical world collapses.
It's one of those hinges of history, isn't it?
Yeah.
A moment where one way of seeing the entire cosmos dies and another is violently born.
Exactly. So I want you to, just for a second, put yourself there. We're in Alexandria, Egypt. The year is around 391 AD. And I want you to feel the heat.
And it's not a pleasant heat. This is that oppressive, sticky North African heat that feels like a heavy blanket. The air is thick with dust.
The city is on a knife's edge. You can feel it. There's a tension that's, heavier than the humidity itself. It feels like anything could set it off.
It really is the weather of a riot. You just know something is about to break.
And what we're talking about today is, for the people living through it, literally the end of the world. I don't mean that as a metaphor for a changing era, though that was happening too.
No, this is much more primal. They genuinely believed, many of them on both sides, that if a particular statue in the heart of the city were to be damaged,
just touched by the wrong people,
the sky would actually fall. The ground would split open. That the physical order of the universe was tied to this one object, and without it, everything would dissolve back into chaos.
It's an incredible mindset to try and inhabit. You really have to, shed your 21st century skepticism for a bit. The Roman Empire is creaking, it's fracturing in the background, and this new force, Christianity, is just, it's ascending with the power of a tsunami.
It really is. And it's washing away centuries, a millennium, really, of Hellenic tradition. And in Alexandria, you have this final magnificent holdout. The old gods are, quite literally, under siege in their last great fortress.
That fortress is the Serapium, and that's our focus. The final standoff at what was called the Acropolis of Alexandria.
And we're not just looking at the military tactics or the high-level politics. The source material for this period allows us to get on the ground, into the streets. We get to see the people caught in the crossfire.
Right. We see the opportunistic street performers, the fanatical bishops, the high-minded philosophers, and even the confused children who have no idea what's going on.
So the central question for our deep dive today is, how does a civilization do that? How does it transition from one entire worldview to another? What does it feel like when the gods you've always known are besieged in their own house?
And how do you, go about your daily life? How do you buy fish for dinner when you think the universe might implode before you get home?
The stakes just could not be higher. And the central character in all of this isn't really a person, it's a place, the Serapium.
Let's paint a picture of this place, because temple just doesn't do it justice. We hear temple and we think of like a single building on a street corner.
Oh, not at all. Think of it more as a fortified university campus dedicated to a god. Yeah. It was built on this huge man-made hill, so it physically dominated the skyline of Alexandria. It was a statement.
And inside, it wasn't just a sanctuary. It was the inheritor of the Great Library. It held, over 100,000 scrolls?
At least. It had lecture halls, laboratories for alchemists, observatories for astronomers. It was the living, breathing repository of the entire Hellenic intellectual tradition. Science, art, philosophy, religion, it was all one thing, and it was all housed in this one massive complex.
And deep inside, in the heart of it all, is the statue, the god himself, Serapis.
Made of gold, ivory inlaid with jewels. A true masterpiece of late classical art. And the rumor, the belief on the street, is that the statue isn't just a representation of the god. It's the anchor point for creation itself.
Which, as you said, really raises the stakes for the average person in the street. If that thing falls, it is game over. Not just for the pagans, for everyone.
For everyone. The Christians might win the battle, but they'd lose the whole universe in the process. That's the fear.
So let's start with that average person. The narrative we're drawing from gives us this wonderful character named Medius. And I have to say, Medius is one of my favorite figures in this whole saga.
Because he's so perfectly unheroic.
Completely. He's a singer, a bit of a blowhard, and he's just utterly terrified. He is the perfect avatar for the guy who doesn't have a dog in the theological fight. He just wants to survive the day.
He's that floating middle. He's not a true believer in anything except his own comfort and safety. And we get this brilliant little scene, this anecdote that just sums him up perfectly. Amidst all this chaos, he goes to the market.
The world is ending, mobs are gathering, and Medius is out shopping. And he finds a bargain.
He finds a deal on pickled fish.
A huge tub of them.
I mean, think about that. We've established the heat, the lack of refrigeration, and this man, seeing the world crumble, decides that the most pressing issue is to buy a lifetime supply of pickled fish.
He drags this thing home, sweating, thinking he's the hero provider. Honey, I've secured our provisions for the apocalypse.
And his wife, of course, is furious. She just lays into him. What were you thinking? We'll be eating this stuff until we're 100.
It's such a real human moment. It shows the absurdity of domestic life just continuing.
Right.
Even at the brink of doom, we still argue about the groceries.
But there's a more serious point to his character, too. He perfectly illustrates the psychology of panic and how belief becomes fluid, malleable.
How so?
Well, when things are relatively calm, Medius likes to play the philosopher. He pucks out his chest and says things like, oh, the gods are just inventions of the priest to keep us in line.
The classic 4th century atheist sitting in his armchair. I've seen through the whole charade.
Exactly. But the second a real rumor hits the street, the Christians have surrounded the temple, the army is moving in, that skepticism just vanishes. It evaporates in an instant.
And suddenly he's a true believer again.
More than that, he's frantically giving his wife money to run off and buy a black lamb for a sacrifice. He's muttering prayers he probably hasn't said in years. He goes from, it's all a hoax, to we're all going to die in the span of a single conversation.
It's pure foxhole religion, isn't it?
It is, but it's more erratic. It's not a conversion. It's just flailing. It shows that for a lot of people, belief wasn't this fixed philosophical identity. It was a tool, a survival mechanism. If being a skeptic makes you feel smart and safe, you're a skeptic.
But if sacrificing a lamb feels safer at that moment, then you're running to the temple.
You're finding the nearest priest. It's a desperate grab for any sense of control in a situation that is totally out of your hands.
And caught up in all this chaos, we have two other figures who are sort of our eyes and ears on the ground level. A young singer girl named Dada, and a little lost boy she finds, Papias.
And they are crucial because they're completely disconnected from the ideology. They don't understand the debate between Arianism and Nicene Orthodoxy. They don't care about Neoplatonism.
They just care that it's hot and dusty and loud and scary.
And that desire for simple safety, for coolness and quiet, leads them to make a choice that thousands of others were probably making. They seek sanctuary.
And this is where the narrative gives us this incredible, almost cinematic contrast. They stumble out of the glazing, screaming street, and they duck into the Basilica of St. Mark, the main Christian church.
And the shift in atmosphere is immediate and total.
Can you describe that transition? Because it's written so deliberately.
Oh, it's a complete sensory reset. Outside is blinding sunlight, choking dust, the sound of wailing and anger. The moment they step inside the basilica, it's cool. The air is still.
And the light is different.
Totally different. It mentions the high stained wood ceiling, the smell of incense, the dim, peaceful lighting. And instead of screams, there's this sober singing. It's organized. It's calm. It feels safe.
Now, Dada is a heathen. She sings in the pagan temples. This is enemy territory for her, technically.
But she doesn't feel that. She just feels relief. And then something really interesting happens. She overhears a woman nearby praying for her sick child. And Dada, the heathen girl, starts praying too.
To the Christian God.
She prays to the God of the Christians for this stranger's child. And this is such a key insight for understanding this period. We tend to think of these religions as, these walled off, mutually exclusive teams. Team Serapis versus Team Christ.
Right, like you pick a side and that's it.
But for many ordinary people, it was much more transactional. It was, my child is sick. Which divine power is most effective right now? Let's try that one. Dada doesn't pray because she suddenly understood the concept of the Trinity. She prays because she's a compassionate person and she wants the kid to get better. It's a results-based faith.
But while Dada is having this very personal, emotional experience, the leadership in that church is doing something far more calculated. We get to hear a sermon from a deacon named Eusebius.
And this is not just some Sunday morning homily. This is a masterclass in crisis management and, frankly, political rhetoric.
We need to break this down because his audience is in a very precarious mental state.
They're terrified. Yes, they're Christians, but they are Alexandrian Christians. They grew up with the Serapium looming over their city. They grew up with stories of the power of Serapis. Deep down, a part of them is just as scared as Medius is that breaking that statue might actually break the world.
So Eusebius has this incredibly fine line to walk. He has to dismantle their fear of the pagan god, but without insulting or dismissing their entire cultural heritage.
And the way he does it is brilliant. He starts by praising Alexander the Great.
Which is the last thing you'd expect. I thought he'd start by denouncing all the pagan heroes.
No, and that's the genius of the Alexandrian school of Christian thought. They argue for continuity, not rupture. He calls Alexander a tool of the Almighty.
A tool? How does he square that circle?
He argues that Alexander's conquests, by spreading the Greek language across the known world, created a common tongue, a lingua franca. And that, he says, was God's plan all along. It prepared the ground so that the gospel could later spread easily to all nations.
Wow, so Alexander wasn't a pagan conqueror. He was just an unwitting contractor for God, laying the groundwork.
Precisely. It's an act of appropriation. He's allowing the congregation to keep their national hero, Alexander, but just reframing his mission. He's saying, we aren't here to destroy your history. We are here to show you its true purpose, its fulfillment.
That is incredibly clever. It's not destruction, it's reinterpretation.
And he does the exact same thing with their intellectual hero, Plato. He doesn't say burn Plato's books. He says Plato saw darkly, as through a glass, what Christians now see clearly.
The idea of the proto-Christian, that the best of the pagan philosophers were groping their way towards the truth that was only fully revealed in Christ.
Yes. And this was a critical argument. It meant that a learned person could convert without having to renounce their entire education. It allowed the church to absorb the machinery of Greek logic, rhetoric, and art, while rejecting what it called idolatry. Keep the wisdom, he's saying. Just get rid of the statues.
But he has to get rid of the statues. And he knows his audience is terrified of that. So he has to address that fear head on. And this is where he uses this incredible analogy, the rotten tree.
This is the absolute core of his argument. He looks out at his congregation and he knows they think Serapis is this cosmic, world-sustaining power, a demon of immense strength. And Eusebius just says, no, he is a rotten tree.
A rotten tree? That's such a disempowering image.
That's perfect, isn't it? Rotten tree isn't cosmically terrifying. It's just old, decayed, and dangerous in a very mundane way. He asks them, when a big rotten tree finally falls in the forest, what happens? Does the earth split open? Does the sun fall from the sky?
No, it just makes a loud noise and a big mess.
Exactly. It kicks up a cloud of dust and splinters. It might crush you if you're foolish enough to be standing underneath it,
Sure.
But the forest itself survives. The world goes on.
He's performing a psychological operation. He's taking the supernatural existential terror and reframing it as a simple, manageable demolition project.
He is secularizing the idol in order to destroy it. It's a brilliant move. And then he pivots to something that is, for this time period, even more shocking, a call for tolerance.
Right after getting them ready to tear it down.
Yes, he tells the crowd, do not hate the heathens. They're your brothers, your neighbors. They are simply lost. He says to win them over with love and reason, to be fishers of souls, not club-wielding enforcers.
Fishers of souls. It's a beautiful image. It sounds so enlightened, so peaceful. But then reality comes crashing through the door, literally.
The eternal gap between the sermon and the street.
While Eusebius is delivering this beautiful speech about peace and love, all hell breaks loose in the narthex, the entryway of the church.
The bull incident. And you have to picture the scene to get the full chaos of it. There's a group of young, defiant heathen men trying to lead a sacrificial bull through the city streets. This is illegal now under the emperor's new laws, so it's an act of protest.
That procession.
Yes, probably with garlands, chanting, the whole thing. But the streets are packed. People are on edge. The bull, predictably, panics. All the noise, the heat, the crowds pressing in.
And a panicked bull is basically a 2-ton battering ram with horns.
And it breaks free. And in his blind terror, it charges directly into the open vestibule of the Christian basilica.
Imagine being inside. You're listening to this calm hymn, this sermon about love, and suddenly a massive, terrified animal smashes through the entrance, followed by a bunch of yelling pagans trying to wrangle it.
And the people who react first are not the thoughtful deacons like Eusebius. It's the monks.
The desert monks, the Parabolani, these are not gentle scholars.
No, these are the hard men, the zealots, often used by the bishop as his personal muscle. They see a pagan symbol, the bull and pagan youths desecrating their holy space, and they don't see an opportunity for dialogue.
They see a fight.
They see a fight. They grab clubs, stones, heavy candlesticks, whatever they can find. And it becomes a brawl, a slaughter, right there on the consecrated ground of the church entrance. The sounds of the fight completely drown out the end of the sermon on peace.
And Dada and Papias are right there. They have to flee past the bodies, past the blood pooling on the mosaic floors.
And for Dada, this is the moment the end of the world becomes real. Not because of a god and a statue, but because of the violence of men. It's a brutal reality check. The high-minded philosophy of the pulpit means nothing when faced with the fanaticism of the mob.
The leaders can talk about love, but the foot soldiers are just out for blood.
A story as old as ideology itself.
So speaking of the leaders and their own disconnect from the street, we have to shift scenes. We need to go to the war room, the Council of Destruction.
We move from the church to the bishop's palace. And here we meet the architects of this whole operation.
First, you have Theophilus, the Bishop of Alexandria. Historically, he is a force to be reckoned with. Powerful, cunning, often ruthless. He is the hardliner here. He wants the Serapium gone today.
And in the room with him are the Roman imperial officials, Cynegius and Evagrius, and these guys are the politicians. They are the pragmatists.
And the dynamic is just fascinating. The politicians are nervous. They're basically saying, Your Grace, let's just tap the brakes here. If we go in full force right now, the city will burn. We're looking at a full-blown civil war. This is bad for business.
They don't care about Serapis versus Christ. They care about maintaining public order and, more importantly, the grain shipments to Rome. But then you get this other objection from a very surprising corner.
An exorcist, a Christian exorcist.
Yes. One of the bishop's own men speaks up and essentially says, with all due respect, Bishop, what if the pagans are right? What if Serapis actually is a powerful demon tied to that statue? If we break it, we might unleash something terrible. Magic is real.
He's a professional in the supernatural, and even he's scared. He represents that lingering folk magic, that superstition that still existed deep within the Christian community itself.
He believes in his God, but he also respects the power of the other side's demons. And Theophilus, the bishop, he just has no patience for this whatsoever.
This is one of the most powerful moments. He sees this fear, this wavering, even among his own staff. So he walks over to the wall and he takes down a crucifix.
A simple wooden cross, his own holy symbol.
And he holds it up for everyone to see, and then he snaps it over his knee.
Just breaks it in half.
Imagine the sound, the gasp in that room.
He throws the two broken pieces of wood on the table and he says, wood and stone have nothing to do with divine majesty.
I mean, that is such a radical, profoundly theological statement to make. He's desecrating his own icon to prove a point about icons.
He's making an incredibly abstract argument through an act of shocking physical violence. His point is, look, I just broke the symbol of my own God and I wasn't struck by lightning. The divine is not trapped in the object.
So if our cross is just wood, what do you think their fancy statue is?
It's just gold and ivory and plaster. It has no power. It's a devastatingly effective move. It completely silences the exorcist and shames the doubters.
Okay, so he's won the theological argument in the room, but the politicians, Cynegius and Evagrius, they still have a practical problem. There is a mob of thousands of armed, desperate heathens barricaded in the Serapium, ready to die.
How do you clear them out without a bloodbath that will engulf the entire city? How do you distract them?
And the solution they come up with is just, it's breathtaking, and it's cynicism.
They decide to weaponize the city's greatest passion.
The horse race.
The horse races, the chariot races at the Hippodrome. It is the ultimate expression of bread and circuses. The imperial officials say, we will announce that the races, which were scheduled for next week, will be held tomorrow.
Because they know their people. They know that the only thing an Alexandrian mob loves more than its gods is a day at the track with a bet on their favorite charioteer.
It's a brutally effective and deeply cynical strategy. You want to clear a temple of religious fanatics, schedule a major sporting event at the same time.
While the pagans are distracted, arguing over which horse to bet on, the army will move in and seize the temple.
And the most tragic part of it is that it shows how shallow some of that religious fervor really was. As we'll see, it works. The grand intellectual tradition of Plato and Aristotle doesn't end in a noble philosophical debate. It ends because everybody left to go watch the horses run.
So while the Christians are plotting this masterstroke of crowd control, let's go inside the walls. Let's enter the Serapium in its final hours.
It's described as this buzzing, chaotic, magnificent place. Again, not just a temple, a city within a city.
And the defenders who have gathered there, they are a true motley crew.
That's the perfect phrase for it. This isn't a disciplined army. It's the entire counterculture of Alexandria gathered in one place for a final stand.
Who are these people?
You've got the hardcore believers, of course, the Neoplatonist philosophers,
Right.
probably barefoot, quoting Plotinus. But then you have grammarians, starving actors who are furious because the church has shut down the theaters.
Of course. The arts are always the first to be targeted in a cultural purge.
Exactly. You have flute players, musicians, poets. You have the wreathed girls, which is a very polite term for the sacred prostitutes or courtesans associated with the temple cults.
So it's everyone who doesn't fit into the new austere Christian moral framework. They've all retreated to the one place they feel safe.
And the atmosphere inside is this bizarre mix of solemn religious ritual and a debauched, frantic party. It really is the last party on earth. They're drinking heavily, there's singing, there's music, but in the corner, other men are sharpening swords and reinforcing the gates.
Kind of manic, desperate revelry.
Precisely. And at the center of it all, in the main sanctuary, the high priest, Olympius, decides it's time to reveal the god.
The curtain drops and they see the statue of Serapis, and then this miracle happens.
The sunbeam miracle.
Yes, tell us about that, because this feels like it's straight out of a Hollywood movie.
It's a piece of masterful religious theater, built on a foundation of brilliant science. The temple's architecture is aligned with incredible precision, and at the exact moment of sunset on certain days, a single shaft of sunlight lances through a small, hidden opening high in the wall.
An ancient skylight.
An ancient skylight, yes. And that beam of light hits a strategically placed mirror, or a piece of polished metal, and it is reflected directly onto the lips of the giant statue of Serapis. So it looks as though the setting sun is kissing the god goodnight.
That's incredible. The crowd must have gone wild.
They were ecstatic, weeping, cheering. For them, it was definitive proof. Look, the cosmos is still in order. The sun god, Helios, still pays homage to our great Serapis. The Christians are wrong.
But Olympius, the high priest, he knows what's really going on, doesn't he?
Oh, he knows exactly how the trick works. He knows it's about optics and architecture, not divine intervention. He probably helped design it, but he uses it. He lets the crowd believe it's a miracle because he understands it's a mechanism of faith.
So is he a cynical fraud, or is he a believer using the tools at his disposal?
The text presents him as a true believer in the meaning behind the god, and he sees this as a tool to help the less sophisticated faithful grasp that meaning. It's that ancient intersection of science and religion. They were using advanced astronomical and optical knowledge to create and sustain spiritual belief.
And this high priest, Olympius, he's not just hiding and praying, he's a man of action, or at least a man of style.
He is the ultimate Hellenist to the very end. The siege is beginning, the Roman soldiers are massing outside, and what does Olympius do? He hosts a symposium.
A symposium of doom.
A formal Greek drinking party, right there in the great hall of the besieged temple. He invites his inner circle, Hellenic, a famous grammarian, Porphyrius, a wealthy benefactor, Carnus, a musician.
And they lie on couches, they're served wine by slaves, and they proceed to have a philosophical debate.
This is just so fundamentally Greek. This is how you face death. Not with wailing and gnashing of teeth, but with wine and a well-reasoned argument.
What on earth are they debating with battering rams at the gates?
They're tackling the big ones. What is the highest good? And my personal favorite, given the circumstances, is man the best or the worst of beings?
Hold on. You can hear the Christian mob screaming outside, vowing to kill you and smash your God, and you're calmly debating the essential nature of man.
Isn't it magnificent? It's the ultimate act of cultural defiance. Hellenius, the grammarian, argues that man is obviously the worst of beings. Just listen to them out there. They're a mindless, violent mob. But then Olympius counters him.
What's his argument?
He argues for the nobility of the human project. He's essentially saying, yes, that is humanity out there, but this, gesturing to their symposium, their philosophy, their art, this is also humanity, and this is better.
It's a way of saying, you can tear down our walls and kill our bodies, but you cannot destroy the idea. You can't stop us from thinking.
Absolutely. He even compares himself to an old Egyptian pharaoh, Mycerinus. The legend was that an oracle told the pharaoh he only had 6 years left to live.
What did he do?
He ordered lamps to be lit all through his palace every single night. He feasted and drank and partied 24 hours a day, turning night into day. And so he said he lived for 12 years in the span of 6.
I will double the life I have left by refusing to sleep. That is the exact energy of this symposium.
It is. But you can also feel the fatalism underneath it all. Olympius knows he's probably going to die. He's not fighting for victory anymore. He's fighting for a good death. He wants to go out remembering what his civilization stood for: reason, beauty, and discourse.
But while the men are having this very public, very performative intellectual gathering, there's a much more private, intense struggle happening elsewhere in the fortress. We need to talk about Damia.
Yes. Damia. She is in many ways the emotional heart of the pagan resistance. She's the elderly matriarch of one of the wealthiest pagan families, and she is not at the party.
Where is she?
She's locked herself away in a high turret room. She is fasting. She's staring into a polished mirror. She's chanting what are described as vocables, meaningless syllables over and over again. She is trying to perform a magical ritual.
What is she trying to accomplish?
She's trying to achieve what the Neoplatonists called henosis, union with the divine one. She's trying to use magic and meditation to literally detach her soul from her body, to escape the prison of the flesh and merge with the cosmic spirit.
To transcend the catastrophe that's unfolding below.
Yes, but she keeps failing. The text describes it beautifully. She gets close. She feels her spirit begin to lift, to disconnect from the world. But then she's pulled back. She's dragged back down by earthly attachments.
And it's her memories that are pulling her back.
It's her memories. And through these flashbacks, we finally learn the real gut-wrenching source of the hatred that's fueling this conflict. It's not abstract theology for her. It's personal. It's about a business deal and a family tragedy.
Let's start with the business deal, the baptism. This felt chillingly modern to me.
It's a devastating detail. She has this flashback to years earlier when her husband came home beaming. He'd just made the deal of a lifetime that would secure their family's wealth. He'd agreed to be baptized.
Not out of faith.
Not at all. It was a requirement to win a massive grain trading contract with the now Christian capital of Constantinople. The emperor favored Christian merchants. It was a purely economic decision.
Called it water for gold.
Exactly. And that magic water of baptism made them fabulously wealthy. But Damia sees it as the day they sold their souls. Her husband and her son became what were known as crypto-pagans.
Outwardly Christian for social and economic reasons, but secretly practicing the old ways at home.
Right. You make a show of going to the basilica on Sunday to keep your government contracts, but on Tuesday night you're in the cellar pouring out a libation to Hermes. And that kind of spiritual duplicity, Damia believes, hollowed out her husband. It made him rich, but it broke his spirit. And she has never forgiven the church for forcing that choice upon her family.
But it's more than just that. For her, the hatred became visceral because of a specific violent event. The bull and the monk.
This is the core of her trauma. She remembers being at a pagan procession years ago, a peaceful one. And her daughter-in-law was there, either pregnant or with a young child. They were leading a sacrificial bull.
And just like the incident at the church.
A fanatical Christian monk trying to be a martyr ran out and deliberately spooked the animal to disrupt the idolatrous ritual.
And the bull stampeded.
It stampeded, and it gored and killed her daughter-in-law. But here's the part that cemented Damia's hatred forever. The Christian community declared the monk who caused the stampede a holy martyr because he died while fighting idolatry. Meanwhile, Damia's family was just broken, left with a dead mother and a lifetime of grief.
So when she hears the monk screaming outside the Serapium now, it's not just a theological disagreement.
It's the sound of the men who killed her family. It explains everything. It shows that these huge historical religious conflicts, they're not just about ideas. They are fueled by millions of small personal stories of grief and grievance and injustice. Damia is trying to magically escape the world because the world has brought her nothing but pain at the hands of these people.
So this is the standoff. You have the Christians, organized, cynical, using entertainment to manage the crowd, led by a bishop willing to break his own symbols to prove a point.
And you have the pagans, barricaded, disorganized, a mix of high philosophy and drunken desperation, relying on theatrical tricks and ancient magic, essentially hosting a magnificent funeral for their entire world.
And caught between them is the rest of the city. Medius trying to figure out what to do with his fish, Dada just trying to find a quiet corner. It's a perfect snapshot of a society tearing itself apart.
And as we move towards the end, you have to come back to the sheer cynicism of the horse race strategy. The sources say that as soon as the word got out, the races are on for tomorrow. The mood in the city shifted.
Even some of the defenders in the Serapium started slipping away.
It did. Wait, Hippias is driving his new quadriga? I can't miss that. It's such a sobering and perhaps timeless lesson. Ideological fervor is powerful, but the lure of a good show might just be more powerful.
Theophilus and the Roman officials knew their audience. Give them a spectacle, and they'll let you do anything.
It's the whimper, not the bang. The great Hellenistic world, The world's the library of Alexandria, of Euclid and Plato. It doesn't die in a final blaze of glory. It dies because its last defenders got distracted and went to the races.
So as we wrap up, what's the big takeaway from all this? What does this moment teach us?
I think it's a profound case study in how civilizations navigate or fail to navigate profound transition. We're watching a paradigm shift happen in real time, and every character is trying a different strategy.
Eusebius tries to build a bridge to co-opt the old world into the new. Plato was really a Christian.
Damia tries to build a wall to retreat into magic and memory and pure hatred. Olympias tries to have a noble, defiant death. And the politicians just try to manage the chaos with the oldest trick in the book.
It's a stark reminder of how fragile these cultural ecosystems are. They're built on shared beliefs, on symbols. And if you smash those symbols...
Well, that takes us right to the big question, doesn't it?
It does. It's time for our thought experiment segment. A quick disclaimer. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. We're exploring hypothetical scenarios inspired by the material.
Okay, so here's the experiment. For the entire episode, we've been inside the mindset of 391 AD. The central belief on both sides is that if the statue of Serapis is destroyed, the world will end. The sky will collapse. The Nile will dry up. Total cosmic chaos.
Right, that's the premise.
But we, with our historical hindsight, know what happened next. The soldiers did get in. A Roman soldier took an axe and he smashed the statue, he chopped off its head, and then everyone waited.
And nothing happened.
Absolutely nothing happened. The sun came up the next morning. The Nile continued its flood cycle. The world did not end.
The physical world didn't end.
The physical world didn't end. But put yourself in the mind of a devout pagan who witnesses that. You have built your entire understanding of reality, your entire cosmology, on the absolute certainty that this object holds the universe together. And you watch a man smash it with a tool, and there's no consequence.
That's silence. The silence from the heavens at that moment must have been the loudest sound they'd ever heard.
It would be deafening. It's a complete and total collapse of meaning. It's Nietzsche's God is dead moment, but happening to an entire populace at once. The central pillar of your reality has been kicked out, and yet the roof, inexplicably, is still there.
That's a truly terrifying thought. Liberation or annihilation?
That's the question. What happens to the collective psyche of a civilization in that moment? Do you wake up the next morning feeling liberated, free from a great and terrible superstition?
Or do you wake up broken, adrift in a meaningless universe where nothing you ever believed was true? Do you just become medius, shrugging your shoulders and going to buy more pickled fish? Because, hey, if the gods aren't real, what does anything matter anyway?
We were watching the moment the soul of the antique world died. The physical world kept spinning, but a world, an entire way of understanding existence, ended in that dusty temple. And the people who were left standing in the rubble had to figure out how to live in the silence that followed.
And you could argue we're still trying to figure that out today. Wow, that is a heavy place to end. We're going to leave it right there. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the last days of Serapis.
It's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you.
We'll see you next time on Talk Treatises.